Welcome to the Helping Conversation, an exploration and celebration of the practice, art, and science of facilitating trusting, safe, inclusive, and effective helping conversations with others. Recorded at ROCvox Recording and Production Studios, Rochester, New York. Mouth off at ROCvox, ROCvox.com. Having enjoyed an almost 40-year career facilitating his own authentic brand of the helping conversation, your host, Executive and Recovery Coach, Keith Greer.
Hello, everyone, and thank you once again for making the time to sit in on this episode of the Helping Conversation. I have two amazing guests in the studio with me today, good friends and respected far and wide in their field of endeavor. And a few years ago, a couple of people on Facebook threw out this message about let's go take a hike. And it was a couple of folks who were in recovery and were looking for ways to expand their recovery and thought, we're just going to get together with some people and take a hike. And that turned into much more consistent Facebook messages and groups getting together. And we'll talk a little bit about exactly how long this has been from when that happened to where we are today, because I lose track of time. But what that resulted in was the start of a phenomenal organization, something that we here in the Rochester area within our recovery community are incredibly proud of. And some would argue, and I would be among them, that it's really the jewel of community recovery organizations in our area. And I would hazard a guess way beyond our area. And the name of the organization is ROCovery Fitness. And let me share with you what their mission is. ROCovery Fitness is a supportive community of physically active individuals brought together by sober living, committed to creating an environment of healing and recovery. Members, friends, and families are empowered to discover their inner strength and confidence through adventure, fun, and camaraderie. And here to talk about ROCovery Fitness and where it has come from that first Facebook post, whenever that was, are Yana Khashper and Jon Westfall. And thank you both for being here with me today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having us, Keith.
So let me share with all of you a little bit of who these folks are. So Yana Khashper is the CEO and co-founder of ROCovery Fitness. Yana was a licensed clinical social worker, yay social workers, before starting ROCovery Fitness. She has an extensive background in working with trauma, mental health, eating disorders, and addiction. Yana has worked at the New York City Fire Department Counseling Service Unit, Strong Behavioral Health, and the Healing Connection. Fitness and the outdoors has transformed Yana's life in recovery, and she decided to share her passion with others. Yana is a certified peer recovery advocate, as well as a certified personal trainer. Yana was honored as one of the Rochester Business Journal's Women of Excellence in 2020 and 40 Under 40 recipients in 2018 as someone who excels both professionally and is actively involved in and giving back to the community. In addition, Yana was recognized with the E.S.L. Jefferson Foundation Award in 2018. Yana is a member of the Monroe County Partners for Suicide Prevention Advisory Committee, the Monroe County Opioid Task Force, and Council of Agency Executives. And sitting right next to Yana is Jon Westfall, who is the Interim Executive Director of ROCovery Fitness. Jon has been heavily involved with ROCovery Fitness since 2017. He started as a volunteer engaging in Wayne County Expansion Project, at the forefront of the Community Street Level Outreach Pilot Project and the annual 5K. In July 2018, he started full-time employment with the organization, which allows him to marry his love of fitness with his passion for community service. Jon has become a cornerstone of the peer recovery movement in the Rochester region. I will second that. He is heavily involved in community outreach programs, grassroots recovery community organizations, and advocacy groups and events. Jon also serves as ROCovery's boxing conditioning coach, ASFA certified kettlebell instructor, and outdoor program team lead. Jon is a New York State certified recovery peer advocate, He also has his SERPA F, which is an expertise in working with families. And he is a certified addiction recovery coach and is currently working towards his CASAC certification. Jon is also a proud father of 4, a longtime fitness enthusiast, graphic designer, and artist. And again, Yana and Jon, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So I think this is one of the most unique models of how to do a helping conversation. Because I think on the surface, people would say, well, maybe it's not a helping conversation. It's just a bunch of people going on hikes and doing physical fitness and things like that. But we're going to get into that. It is much more than that. So, Yana, let me start with you. Just maybe really kind of quickly, how ROCovery Fitness got to where it is today.
And you pretty much covered those the beginning pieces or the ways in which ROCovery came to be. From a simple hike, myself and Sean Smith, who's the other co-founder, just went on a hike. We were early in our recovery, and we were struggling. It was the really cold winter of 2015, and we weren't getting out. We weren't doing what we needed to do for our recovery. So we decided to post a hike to our Facebook page. And it was a cold Sunday in Tryon Park. There was snow everywhere, and I wanted to go home. I was hoping no one came on that hike. And much to our surprise, we had about 10 people that came on that hike. And it was a diverse group. They weren't just our immediate circle of friends. They were friends of friends, acquaintances. And we had such a good time. We connected over, the winter and recovery and the outdoors. And we weren't thinking about our depression. We weren't thinking about picking up drugs or alcohol as our go-to coping defense or coping skill at that time. Someone in the group asked if we could do it again the following weekend, and that was the beginning of ROCovery Fitness. We started weekly hikes and park workouts. When the weather picked up, it was kayaking and bike rides and just anything and everything you could think of.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know we talked a little bit in your bio, Jon, but maybe a little bit more about kind of where you slid in to being involved in this program.
Sure. So, I was fortunate enough to meet actually Sean and one of our volunteers at my recovery coach training. Actually, they were going through the SERPA certification at the same time I was. So I kind of, being in the rooms, I was in 12-step at that time pretty much exclusively. Everyone heard of ROCovery, as the center was opening. So it was a buzz throughout the entire recovery community. And then meeting Sean and the other volunteer, really got to know a little bit more at that time. I think Sean was still working for the VOC and doing ROCovery simultaneously. And then having gone through that recovery coach training and talking with them a little bit more, I became more interested in. My bio said, I've been involved in fitness for many years, but never really connected the two. I never really saw how that applied to my recovery. And then I actually got to know Yana through as you know my story, I really attached myself to Lori as I went through the training and everything else. I just really got heavily involved in the advocacy side of things. And Lori would hear of all these opportunities and send me an email with a list of opportunities where I could volunteer, where I could get more experience. And lo and behold, one of those opportunities had Yana's name attached to it. And it was the street outreach over on North Clinton. So right. I took a very non-traditional route into the ROCovery organization through street outreach. I didn't even walk through the doors of the gym. So it was really pretty interesting. Yeah. And then after, having had that experience and really getting to know Yana and working with her weekly on outreach, really getting more heavily involved with ROCovery that way.
Right.
So that kind of how was my pathway into ROCovery and my introduction into it. And that was back in 2017.
Right. And just to make sure all listeners are really caught up on exactly where this organization is today, a few years ago, you opened a clubhouse. So this is no longer just taking place on social media and people are meeting up for a Saturday afternoon hike.
That's right. We were outdoor based for the first 2 years. All year round in the winter, we were doing workouts. I was very happy to come to. And we were 2 years in, we were approached by an individual that lost her son to an overdose, and she wanted to give back. I remember her asking me what my vision is, kind of pie in the sky. And I thought about a place, a storefront, a 700 square foot little area where we can gather 7 days a week and have a safe place for people to go. And she just saw so much more in our future. So she sought out and purchased a firehouse that was built in 1910 right in the heart of the city on Dewey Avenue. And she donated it to ROCovery. She watched us grow. She made sure we were in a position where we could maintain it and sustain it, and she handed it over to us.
Right. And so today, ROCovery is supported through donations, I'm assuming grant writings. What other kinds of funding helps you guys keep your doors open?
We beg.
Yana, I'll never forget it. The first time I heard her describe herself as a professional beggar, and now being the interim executive director, I get it. Yeah, that's exactly what I feel like every day. Please just help.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think when I came on board, I think our largest revenue stream prior to that was in lieu of flowers, unfortunately.
Right.
That was really one of our biggest funding mechanisms. When I was brought on full-time as a staff, it was through a grant-funded opportunity. So I think over the last 3 years or so, we've really, really been pursuing grant opportunities more heavily, both foundation and government grants.
Yeah, so. So I always get curious with my guests about this theory I have of all of us who are in the helping world, which is basically that it's just not a coincidence that we're all in the helping world. That from our first breath, we had certain innate ways of being that were probably pretty good predictors that we would eventually be in the helping world. So if you think back to childhood, teenagehood, what would have been the evidence then that you were destined to work in the helping world, that you were destined to help others?
Gosh, I'm not sure. I thought about this question, actually, and there's certain things I feel like if I disclosed, my parents would call and yell at me about my childhood.
Yeah, we will not turn this into family therapy, Yana. Right.
We're laughing, but she's not kidding.
I just thought of a few flashes there. I think for me and my history, my family immigrated from Russia in 1992, and it was coming into a completely different world. A place where there was anti-Semitism, there was oppression to this American dream and trying to figure it out. And for me, there was a curiosity about, I would say, human behavior. Why did people behave the way they did? I wanted to understand personalities, cognitive thinking. At the time, I didn't know any of those words, but just a general curiosity.
Yeah. How about for you, Jon?
Well, if we're going back as far as childhood, it's going to take me a little bit. I really, excuse me, when I was younger, I would get picked on a lot for being overly sensitive. And of course, that just made me more sensitive.
Oh, my, I'm with you on that one, brother. Oh, yeah.
I really went through a lot of that when I was much, much younger. And then, and I was thinking about this question as well. In sixth grade, one of my classmates who was also in Cub Scouts with me actually came down with a form of cancer. And in one of our holiday parties in sixth grade, I remember this very vividly. His mother, he was out of school for a while, and everyone always wondered, how he was doing. His name was Pat Stone. And she brought him in for the holiday party, and I remember everyone, it was sort of a Secret Santa kind of a thing, and everyone got a little gift to unwrap and whatever, and, he was kind of sitting over in the side of the room with his mom in a wheelchair, and just, had lost his hair, and you could just tell he wasn't long for the world.
Yeah.
And it was my first dose of, I think, truly knowing somebody who was going to die. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know how to process that. I came over to him and, I showed him this little battleship. I can still see it as if it happened yesterday. And, I'm older, so it's been a few years.
Yeah.
But I can remember like it was yesterday, and I just remember showing it to him and not really knowing what to say or how to express without sounding like I was being patronizing or being, I felt this innate need to somehow comfort him or support him or really I wanted to give him the toy. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I wanted to do something. And I think that was probably the first indication if I look back. And then, of course, I got older, became a teenager, and everything was about me. So,
yeah, right.
And then in my 20s and 30s, active use and addiction, it was all about me. So,
yeah.
So that part of me, I think, kind of got buried in all the use and drinking.
But a definite recognition looking back of a level of sensitivity to things around you. And I have such vivid memories as a child and as a teen of hating that part of me as a male, right? We're not supposed to cry easy, right? And to this day, my children laugh at me. I cry over the drop of a hat. But it wasn't fun when you were, like 9, 10, 11.
Right.
And that's not supposed to be who you are as a male, right? That's not the narrative you hear. Yeah. So in addition to you and Sean decided one day to put something on Facebook and you had to stand in the cold, and that resulted in... I love that picture. I just love that picture.
Secondary trauma.
Right. Yes.
Additional.
So in addition to that being the impetus of this getting going, ROCovery Fitness is based on a larger model. Could you talk a little bit about that model? Because you went and did some research and learned from this larger model.
Yeah, absolutely. When we first started, we tapped into a niche. It was such a simple concept. It was fitness, it was community, it was recovery, and there just had to be something out there. We didn't think we were unique in finding it. So we did some research, and I came across one organization out of Colorado called the Phoenix, formerly Phoenix Multisport, and they were a sober active community. At that point, they had been doing it since, I believe, 2006. They had 3 chapters in Colorado, 1 in California. I believe Boston was on the horizon. And I reached out to them, to their founder, Scott Strode. And he was incredibly helpful and transparent and has become a mentor for us in our development, shared all the tricks of the trade, the trials and tribulations.
Right.
And they have developed an evidence-based model. So there's, it's not just, we always talk about this, it's not just working out, it's not just lifting weight. There's an actual foundation, evidence behind the benefits of community more than anything, and fitness being sort of a tool or a common interest that brings the community together.
Right. Yeah, look, I know the number of people I have heard since you guys have been around who, when we talk about the whole concept of multiple pathways of recovery, would say for them, participation in the community of ROCovery Fitness is their pathway of recovery, right? That it's that strong for them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that, it's important to not only recognize but honor that multiple pathway ideology, right? Which is why we sponsor so many different mutual aid meetings, anything that somebody could possibly use as a recovery tool. We want to be all about connecting with that, offering that to our members. If we don't do it ourselves, we're gonna connect with folks that do it.
Right.
And for some people like me, my pathway of recovery is multiple things, but at the heart of it is ROCovery Fitness, and it is the community and the connections that I've developed there. But it's also my faith and my family.
Right.
So I always say my recovery is all about the F word, right? fitness, faith, and family.
Much better use of the F word,
yes.
right?
Yeah, and family includes those that are chosen.
Yes.
So my chosen family are some of my deepest, closest friends, which until I came to ROCovery, I didn't truly know what friendship really, really was.
Right.
I mean, and I do have that now.
Yeah.
And it's a gift.
Yeah.
You know, that connection where I always say this, but it seems a little cliche, but I have friends now that would lay down in traffic for me, and I do it for them too.
Right.
That's how, connected we are, and friends that check in on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Even when you don't want to be checked in.
Checked on. Right.
Especially when you don't want to be
Right.
checked in on.
That's right. That's when they're keeping a close eye.
Yeah. So I think that, is really foundationally what we're about, is this community, that connection. And like Yana said so well, and nobody says it better than she does, is that it's just a tool to get that connection.
Yeah.
Right. It almost happens when you're not paying attention. Right. We're having fun, a bunch of us going out on a hike, or a bunch of us working out together, and it doesn't even have to be spoken. It's just an understood, an understood bond that we have. Where if you're having a rough day, you don't even have to say what it is.
Right. So I'm curious about the evidence-based part. I totally get the power of community. Is there anything, Yana, in what you see or in what helped to create the organization that helped to mentor you, that would say there's also something specific about this type of community, the activity and recreation, versus any other form of community?
I would, yes. The way, we look at patterns of coping prior to entering recovery, and we look at all the ways in which we harmed ourselves and harmed our bodies and our physical health. And in thinking about rebuilding those pathways, once we enter recovery, it starts with smaller goals of just being able to look in the mirror and not hating the way you look, to some of the health benefits of getting more active, building community in terms of having friends, starting to experience with support, people really cheering you on. And then the longer term effects are, you kind of from mentee to mentor sort of thing. There are long-term health benefits, there are mental health benefits. And it really is the ripple effect.
Right. So somebody walks into your facility first time. We all know how difficult it is for folks maybe in early recovery who've struggled with recovery to walk in and trust and make themselves vulnerable. So I'm curious about that. When that person walks in, what do they run into? Who do they run into? And what does anyone associated with ROCovery Fitness do to quickly attend to those trust and safety needs?
They're usually met by a dog.
Yeah.
Oftentimes.
And that has mixed results at times.
That sometimes, yes. But that is the hardest thing to do. That door, that phone, that door, whatever the metaphor is, weighs 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
So once someone takes that step and opens that door, they are met with an individual just like them, no different. There's not a hierarchy in ROCovery Fitness.
Okay.
That welcomes them, that looks them in the eyes, that shows them respect, treats them with dignity, doesn't question them, trusts whatever it is, trusts what they're saying, and really begins to build that rapport.
I think, to speak to that a little bit more, I love the story that Mike always tells about, when the first couple of times he came to ROCovery, he would just drive into the parking lot and then turn around and leave. And
really?
So he's an amazing volunteer, and he's there constantly. Even though he's gone through the recovery coach training, he's now a peer working in the field, and he still takes one of his days off every week and comes in and volunteers for us. Even right now, during our orange restriction, we're not asking for volunteers to come in, but we're allowing people to come in if it supports their recovery, or if they want to, if they need, to do that service work. So Mike still comes in, but he at least twice drove into the parking lot, sat there, looked at the building, and drove away. He walked through the door for the very first time. He was about to turn around and walk back out the door, and Sean, the other co-founder, grabbed him before he could get back out the door and started talking. If you know Sean, he's got one of those personalities. It's just like so exuberant and so energetic and enthusiastic that you cannot get away from him. If he's got his eyes set on you and he's going to, engage you, you're going to get it. You're going to be engaged. So, Mike, it's always great to hear him tell the story about, how he finally, found the connection that kept him there.
Yeah.
Right. Not only did he have the courage himself to walk through the door, but then he found the connection to stay there. Additionally, beyond that, when I came on, I was hired as a peer support program manager and outreach coordinator. One of the very first things I did when I got there was to say, let's set up this peer program with our volunteers who have all gone through the CERPA training. And if they haven't gone through it, we're going to give it to them.
Right.
They don't have to go for certification, but at least at the base level, we'd like you to do the CCAR training.
Right.
And at least, have that base knowledge to be able to connect with folks, and then offered it to the community as a warm handshake, right? So if you're having trouble getting into the center, getting over that anxiety, walking through the door, give us a call, shoot us an email, and we'll have somebody connect with you beforehand. And if it'll help you to set up an appointment with this peer, to actually have someone there to meet, because that sometimes will help, right? I've got a friend there already, somebody I've talked to or emailed with, at least there's somebody I know already. So there's not this anxiety of not being part of the clique.
Right.
Right? You can walk in, you got someone there, there's your safe, your safe haven is that person waiting there for you. And then they're going to work with them to create, what is it you're looking for kind of a thing, and meeting them where they're at.
Right.
So I don't know if it's your goal is fitness or your goal is, you just want to come in and play ping pong or foosball or whatever. Right. But it just gives you a friend at the center.
Right.
So.
Right. And as you said, Jon, a friend equipped with some skills a little bit above and beyond somebody who hasn't gone through the training. Right. And I'm pretty sure in the name of ROCovery and of helping as many as you can, you're all connected to some other programs around the area, right? You, at least for a while, you were in drug court. I don't know if you still are.
Yes,
still are.
We sure are.
So how do you function there?
So during COVID, it's looked a little different. As many
that's
things
the
are.
rest of the world has. Right?
And it's so funny that you mentioned drug court specifically, because that's one program that actually got kind of a shot in the arm from COVID. We were having a really hard time getting individuals to engage. And anecdotally, we believe, and we've heard some feedback on this, that, as you're going through drug court and you got to go through outpatient, you got to do all these things. And a lot of times you don't have transportation because your license has been taken away or whatever. It's just one more added thing that somebody has to do. So there's been historically a hard time getting that connection, that engagement. Here's one more thing to do, right? When COVID came along, Judge Elliott, who's an amazing advocate of ours, we absolutely love Judge Elliott and Kim Van Camp over there as the drug treatment coordinator, gave us a call and said, what can you do? We can't, they're not coming in to report right now because we can't. We can't do the screens. We need some additional support in the community that we can help. So we started setting up a weekly Zoom support line, and they added us to their random screen line. They added our peer number to that. So, and we had a peer specifically designated to drug court, but we also have peers in primary care, in the education system, and also in treatment.
That's awesome.
So
one of the places you just mentioned it that I know you guys are going to be, and I know this because in a couple of days I'm going to do my first of 3 trainings with their staff, is our new Recovery High School. So talk a little bit about that, because that is such an exciting occurrence in our area.
Yeah, so we're really excited about the Recovery High School. It's the first one in our area and the first one in the state.
Is it really? It's the first one in New York State?
Unless I'm making a big
No,
it is the first one in the state. Yeah. So it's incredibly exciting, and BOCES is really leading the way. I mean, it's an Oasis school, but BOCES has developed an incredible plan. They've engaged partners. They've really been the leaders here in our area in reaching out to districts and getting the districts to buy into it. There's a lot of kind of pieces to it. But it's incredibly exciting because there have been times in our history where they've tried, recovery high schools or recovery schools have tried to start up. And I think there was one
about 20-something years ago, yes.
And it didn't really
BOCES one.
Take off.
And it didn't take off for a very, and you mentioned it, Yana, that they didn't do, let me reframe this. I don't know how good a job they did or didn't do, but where it fell apart was districts weren't willing to refer. But think about where we were in our thinking about substance use disorder 20 years ago. Yeah. Right? It was greatly minimized. It was, kids should just be able to get their you-know-what together. What I remember of the program is it was very well put together, but I think it only lasted like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're really hopeful. They've embedded peers. They've embedded ROCovery Fitness.
Beautiful.
Both in the peer work, our peers are going to be the ones in the school, but also in the engagement, the community, the fitness, the health and wellness side. And services on site for mental health, for substance use, really an environment of acceptance, and not a punitive kind of environment.
Right.
You get in trouble, you get sent to the school, and it's not punishment.
Yes,
is the other piece. Students and families have to want to do it.
Right. Yeah, so exciting. So exciting. We've been waiting for that for a long time in our area. Yeah.
Yes, it's been under development for quite a while.
Yeah. So I'll be meeting with their staff Thursday. I think is my first day with them. Do some work around a lot of the concepts that you all got right in just going through the recovery coach training. Is what we're gonna bring to them. All right. So one of the cornerstones of a really, really good helping conversation is being strength-based. So it sounds like you all do a wonderful job with the folks who get involved in ROCovery in helping them identify their strengths and feeling, returning to a real strong feeling of advocacy, self-advocacy. So I'm always curious with the helping people I talk to. What are some of your strengths that you bring every single day to your role as a helping person within ROCovery Fitness? So you get to brag about yourself a little bit right now.
If you can't do it,
I'll do it for you if you want, because I can come up with all your strengths, I think.
But isn't that the thing, that we can point out all the strengths and build one another up? But when it comes to us, it's like, oh,
it's a fascinating thing for me. Exactly. Like, what is it for us folks that makes it so hard for us to brag about ourselves? But, I can wax eloquent about my good friend or somebody I respect. And yeah. So go ahead, Jon. Your strengths, not Yana's, yours.
I'd much rather talk about Yana's strengths. I'm really good at that. So I can only just tell you what I've heard from others that at least consistently what I've heard that's very helpful is my ability to remain calm. Given any number of chaotic situations, just having a cool head. I had an old business partner back when I was in marketing and graphic design who used to say, I want to be the captain of your sinking ship. So I want to be the one that people look to for comfort, for guidance, for so I always really loved that statement, and I want people to think of me, if they have a sinking ship, they want me to be the captain of that sinking ship.
I like that. I'm going to steal that. Yeah.
Compassion, I think, is also probably in my ability for non-judgment of people who are, in a tough spot.
Yeah.
Right. Just being able to, and another thing that you've always said that I always love too, and I remember this from the training, my ability to not put myself in someone else's shoes, but put one of my foot in one of their shoes. Right. To still retain my own identity, but to be able to, to identify with them as well in their walk. Yeah. So I think that speaks a lot to non-judgment and compassion.
Yeah. Yeah. No question.
And just being able to actively listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really
Beautiful.
Being curious and.
Right. Which is all the things that we know somebody who is walking in very early in recovery needs.
Yeah.
Right? They need that non-judgmental, empathic I'm with you, talk to me, I'm here to listen, presence, right? When they walk in. And we all know that historically has not always been modeled in some corners of the treatment and recovery world. So, important. So I'm going to put you on the spot, Yana. Couple of strengths, because you're CEO. You built this thing from a hike that you didn't want to be at to this phenomenal organization.
I think Jon and I are a great balance because I'm probably the excitable one. So I turn to him. Passionate. I turn to him to steer the ship a lot. But I think, doing what I have to do even when I don't want to do it.
Right.
It's getting up each day, and some days I don't want to, like all of us, but still showing up for my staff, showing up for my friends, for the community, and just being able to walk through situations with as much dignity and grace as I could muster. And then I turn to Jon to put out those fires.
Yeah.
Did you just say grace was one of your strengths?
Hey!
Really a humble grace, too. Really very good. I agree.
Oh, gosh. I think, just along those lines, perseverance. When we first started ROCovery Fitness, we really wouldn't get the time of day. And I think one of the reasons why we were even let into the door is because at that time I led with, I'm Yana, I'm the co-founder, I'm Yana, I'm a licensed clinical social worker and the co-founder and an individual in recovery.
Right.
And I really firmly believe, I don't have, facts around it, but that was how we got in the door.
Right.
And over time, with people, some of the reactions were, oh, that's cute. That's cute, little girl in recovery. And I felt that. And over time, my voice got stronger. And I led with, I'm an individual in recovery, and these are some of the other things that I do.
Right. Yeah. So kind of related to that, we can talk about a helping conversation where you engage another human being, somebody who walks in to ROCovery Fitness looking for connection and community. But you two are involved in helping on a systemic level as the leaders of an organization. And I do think there are commonalities in the skills we use in helping an individual versus helping an organization to grow. But I'm curious with the two of you what that part of helping has been like for you. Is it similar? Are there places it's different? But just in general, right now you're put your CEO hat on, so to speak, leader hat on, what that part of helping has been like for both of you.
For me, there's a switch. When I'm in that sort of realm of more of an advocacy, I turn off my feelings and I'm able to snap into, you can't hurt me. Your words can't hurt me. And two, I may be the voice of the voiceless, and I'm there to represent those that will never get the chance to speak again,
right,
and those that are fighting for a better life for themselves. So it's really kind of dual personality for me. My humanness is out the window, and now I'm at war.
Right.
The excitability.
Right.
I've seen it happen too. Right. It's like
I got a picture of a mama bear.
Yeah.
Right. Like this is my gig and my people and right.
Yana's got her business face on. Definitely, it switches. It switches over for sure. I love watching her in those areas too, because you can tell. I mean, she's all business. She's all advocating and is not going to back down. Or made to feel small in any arena, which is amazing to watch. I still have maybe a timidity to my approach in those areas,
right?
But also a tenacity in advocacy, and especially you bring up, we're actually in the planning process of the 2021 Stand Up for Recovery Day. Right. So big A advocacy hat on with that. We meet with legislators this year. It's virtual. Okay. It's over Zoom. And it's something we've been doing for the last, I don't even know, 3-4 years anyways, being the sort of the regional spearhead of that, along with our friends over at Core Center, go with us, to Albany every year. We bring some other folks from the recovery community along with us. And so, it's sort of that balancing act of, it's a longer road ahead, right? There's a advocacy, especially to the legislative branch, is a long haul. Right. It's not, it's not you go in there and you ask for something, you get it before you leave.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Westfall.
A lot of times you'll get, the legislator's junior assistant that happens to be in the office that day, and they're just taking notes and going to pass it along in an email if you're lucky. So it just takes a lot of, Yana mentioned her persistence and her tenacity, and I think that is probably the biggest thing that I've watched and sort of taken lessons from, is that don't give up. Eventually you get heard, and eventually, we can change things if we're just persistent enough and we just stick with it. It's not going to happen overnight. But I think that ability to, switching gears.
Yeah.
And dropping some of that compassion, but being really firm, being much firmer with, the organizations that you're dealing with. Yeah. But doing it in the best interest of the people that you have all that compassion for. You have that.
Right. Right. I'm also curious for the two of you, kind of maybe alongside the Big A advocacy, both for ROCovery Fitness as an organization and a recovery community in general. Again, going from, we get together on Facebook to a not-for-profit organization. I'm also assuming there are a variety of other tasks that the two of you are responsible for that keep the doors open, or that have to do with policy and procedure and things like that. So how's that for the two of you, again, as compared to sitting on the couch and talking with somebody and doing that piece that I know the two of you do extraordinarily well, but again, more of the big system stuff?
Go ahead.
We have finally finished our employee handbook after 3 years on Monday, and I want to check it out.
Congratulations, Mazel Tov. Yeah, that's awesome.
I think, a lot of that is why I am where I am today. It's an emotional week, and I kind of came in here in like a mini breakdown, but we got into ROCovery Fitness for that social piece, for that connection, for the activity, but then being placed in this kind of CEO role and dealing with employee handbooks and policies and procedures, it took me away from the community.
Yeah.
And it put me behind a computer, and I'm a social worker. These things are not my strength. But, in the helping conversation, that attention to self just wasn't there. And over time, I got further and further. The cost of building ROCovery or sustaining ROCovery at the cost of losing myself became too great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot of, and people oftentimes are like, what is it, what do you do for work? And I say ROCovery Fitness, and they're like, that's all you do? And I think, I'm going to forget, the excitability.
Right. Yes, right. You want to say that again? Yeah.
You might want to step away a few feet.
Yeah. Yeah. So that piece of that organizational piece, the business piece that takes you away from the tasks that you really enjoy, right?
And it's a business.
Yes, it is.
And in that leadership role, you have to think about it as a business. And I don't know, kind of general statement that the helping profession, social workers are able to think of, translate human lives into business model. Right.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I would be guilty of that. I think it's not how we look at the world. Until we're maybe in a position where to keep this organization going, I have to look at it this way.
Absolutely.
Right. But I don't think it's innate. Yeah. So you guys just had a very big announcement.
We did.
And not that I'm asked, this might produce some tears, but share what that announcement was.
Yeah, and so about a month ago, and this is something that's been thought out in probably about a year in the making. I know I've talked to you about it some as well. We have announced my transition out of ROCovery Fitness and Jon's appointment as the Interim Executive Director of ROCovery Fitness.
Yeah.
Which I'm really excited about, because I think Jon knows the organization just as much, if not more, than I do, especially with his involvement and being the cornerstone of the peer recovery movement here. Right. And he is just amazing. And the captain for the ship. The right captain for the ship.
Is not going down.
The ship is not going down.
I just want to clarify that.
Yeah. Well, I never quite know what the right response is in a moment like this, other than congratulations to you. That you. We all know how hard you have worked. And to make a decision, and a well thought out decision, to give yourself some time to figure out what's next. Right?
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, and a brilliant choice of who the next person is.
Absolutely.
Brilliant choice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're excited.
So along that line, I thought you said something earlier, Jon, that struck me. That when we were talking earlier about how you guys are funded, that you said one of the earliest funding lines was in lieu of flowers. So we all know one of the realities of this disease, right, is that some of our brothers and sisters will pass away from overdose. How does this organization respond to that, cope with that? Because that's a reality for your organization from the moment you became an organization.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we try our best to show up for our members in our community. We've done a vigil. We reach out to the family to see what they would like. Yeah. What their needs are. We offer support. We offer support to the community. Thanks to Jon providing the training, the CCAR training to our volunteers, they're able to provide support to show up for the people that need it.
Yeah.
But I think, the other piece is when, and I'm going probably off topic, but when we show up, or we're called to this position to show up, we forget ourselves. Yeah. Because who's showing up for us, not to put it in a selfish way.
Yeah.
But there were a number of losses for me that really put me over the top.
To me, Yana, as someone who, both as a social worker over the years, working in this field, and it's got to be 15 years ago, but it feels like it was yesterday to be in a school building that had 3 suicides in 1 year. It's not selfish to say this stuff really impacts me, and it can be very easy when we do what we do, and because we do it so well, right? Which is to show up for people and do the thing we need to do, and your stuff can get lost a little bit. Yeah, no question. And I don't think there's anything selfish about that, because it's one of the hazards of this profession, right? Of being innately a giving, caring, empathic, intuitive person. Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think that, to Yana's point too, we also know, where our limitations are, as well, as far as, what kind of support we can personally offer versus, what are some of the other organizations out there, like Becky Baker at SOARS, and some of these family support, grief and loss groups that do this and do it very well. Yeah. And again, it's that peer model, right? It's people who have walked in your shoes that can truly understand, what you're dealing with and what you're going through.
Right.
That, we will refer people constantly to other organizations that specialize in those things. Yeah. And then just be there to listen and do whatever we can. Yana's strengths I wanted to add to, but we moved on much too quickly. I have never seen somebody who who instinctively just, like she said, shows up, but has this huge heart for giving to people whatever she can to help them out of a tough situation.
Yeah.
Being a personal recipient of that, even myself, where I've been in a couple of tough spots and she's just gone here,
Right.
you know, and just with whatever resources she personally has to help somebody in a tough spot, you know, almost to her fault.
Mm-hmm.
We've had conversations about this.
Yeah.
Almost a little, you know, a little too giving. You know, from having people live at her house for extended periods of time who, honestly, just without that, they would be on the street.
Yes.
They would literally be on the street. And I've seen her do it numerous times, and she will always do it as long as she's drawing breath. I'm sure of that.
Yep.
And that is, to me, what epitomizes my picture of my friend Yana in my mind. And the lesson that I try and take from her with me is that first and foremost, you're here to help somebody. And the more dire their straits are, the more you go to the mat for them, right? To get them through that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then we'll deal with self-efficacy afterwards.
No question.
We'll
Right.
work on that.
Right.
But right now, you know, making sure you're safe and you've got somewhere to put your head tonight.
I remember a conversation I had with one of my closest friends and most cherished colleagues that you know, Paula Bush, who was just on an episode of this. We just released her episode. Many years ago when we were both doing school social work and dealing with trauma, illness, and grief, and it might have even been that year of the 3 student losses, that in our work, there's moments where, and I sometimes think this is the part that most people don't get about what we do and the skill involved in what we do, above and beyond being a naturally caring person. That when we are, you know, for us, when we were called to deal with crisis or loss, that it's almost like you just put your uniform on. All right, this is a moment where I can't dig into my feelings because I'll be good to nobody in my professional capacity. I need to put my coat of skills on that I know I have and I do well to be here for other people. And there'll be a time to take care of myself. And that's a risk, right? Because it's easy to just keep saying that and not making the time.
Right.
It's really, I think, one of the hardest things about this gig.
Yeah.
Only so much energy.
Yeah. And burnout is real.
Yes,
and
it
it's
is.
incredibly painful.
Yes, it is.
You know, and all that they talk about it in school and high school, undergrad, grad, in the C car.
Yeah.
And we're like, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Self-care. It's become a joke, which is pretty sad.
It's hard and it's so complex. Like, because who the hell knows where that boundary is? Like, what's the, you know, where I really need to take care of myself today versus I chose this job, this that calls on me to give my energy to other people. And I dig it and it's great and I'm good at it. But keeping an eye on that cost. Yeah. So let's flip it for a second. As you are in your roles to this point in time with ROCovery Fitness, the greatest gifts to the two of you of doing what you do.
The greatest gift for me has been the family, a true sense of belonging.
Yeah.
Because ROCovery has saved me more than I've probably saved it, you know. I question whether I'd be in recovery. I question whether I'd be alive if it wasn't for ROCovery because, like I said, those days that I couldn't get up, I knew I had to.
Yeah.
So the community, Jonathan, you know, my friends, just this surreal change in the recovery movement as a whole, to look at what ROCovery is. It's never been real to me. I never was able to wrap my head around the magnitude or what it really was. So, without ROCovery, I wouldn't.
So there's the flip side. There's the flip side of what it takes from us is what it gives to us, what this work gives to us. Yeah, yeah. How about for you, Jon?
I would, she stole my answer.
That's all right.
I would say the exact same thing with the addition of my actual family. So one of my pathways into all of this was, not only my own recovery story, but that of my, I have 2 kids who have had experiences in the past and a lot of troubles, both with legal systems and what have you. That led me, down this path to change careers from, graphic design and marketing to the highly lucrative and very prestigious field of human services. You read the sarcasm in that? At 47 years old with a kid in college and 3 more with the prospects of going, you don't switch to human services from...
Yeah. This is true, dude.
So really, it was the struggles that I was experiencing in my own family in the turmoil and everything else where I felt like I needed to focus on my own recovery, be a better role model, and then help people who actually wanted to help because I was making the relationship in my family worse by trying to help when they didn't want to help. Right? It was driving them away as opposed to. So it really caused me to put my focus somewhere else. And then, you know what? Funny thing is, those relationships got better. Like eventually they came. Now all of my kids come to ROCovery. My youngest son ran his first 5K, did all 4 trails with me in one day, runs with me. Now he's beating me on runs. It's just, they have responded to this, to me being part of this organization better than I would have ever suspected. Yeah. They're constantly at the gym. I do a personal class just for my kids and their, friends on Sunday, which is my day off. But, that's my family day, right?
Yeah.
That, I couldn't get that anywhere else. It gave me my family back.
Right.
In a better way than I could have ever imagined.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
and the
awesome.
friendships and connections.
Yeah.
Everything she said.
Yeah. What a gift. If somebody is listening and they are so inspired from this that they find themselves thinking about starting their own recovery community organization, a couple of words of wisdom to that person.
Reach out to Jon.
Right. So don't reinvent the wheel, which is what you learned when you reached out to that organization out west, right?
Absolutely. One thing I would say is follow your passion. Go after whatever it is, no matter how many people laugh or make fun of it or tell you it's silly, go do it.
Yeah.
The second would be reach out to Jon. We have, over our work with expansion efforts and trial and error and working with the Phoenix, we have developed almost like a kit of sorts that talks about how to start, how to rock recovery, I think Lisa called it, but it's essentially how to start a similar chapter, sober, active community, recovery community organizations from what we've learned.
Right. Yeah. Words of wisdom, Jon, beyond that?
Develop an acute sense of self-awareness. Really understand where your boundaries should be and honor them.
Yeah.
And have a limitless supply of enthusiasm and energy.
Yeah.
Because that's what it takes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it takes to show up every single day and act like it's the first day all over again.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of energy that you need.
Right.
Because you're going to have people who go back out, come back in, go back out, come back in.
Yeah.
And greeting them with open arms and a smile on your face every time they come back is what it takes. Yeah. And if you don't have that, it's really important to know that right up front.
Right.
If you don't have a limitless supply of patience and enthusiasm, really, find another line of work, because that's what it takes.
Yeah.
And that's what the field deserves.
Right.
It really does.
No question. And I would add something, as you're saying that struck me. In addition to everything you just said, it would seem to me to do that and to do it well also requires the most up-to-date understanding of what substance use disorder is, the progression of, what recovery looks like, the dynamic of relapse or reoccurrence, really understanding that, maybe compared to some antiquated ways we dealt with it in the past.
Absolutely.
Because I would imagine that helps. All right, this is for some people, a part of this disease process and the recovery process.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And be flexible in your opinions and your outlook.
Right.
Always be open to new information as
Yeah.
it comes in, or
Yeah.
new ways of looking at things.
Yeah.
Don't be stuck in a rut, because you will just burn out.
Yeah.
Burn out.
Yeah.
And don't think you're right.
Yeah.
Don't think you're always right,
Right,
because
right.
that idea of I know what someone needs,
Ooh.
instantly a red
Yeah.
flag, because
Yeah.
I have no idea what
Yeah.
anyone
Yeah.
needs.
Yeah.
I just get to show up for
Yeah.
them.
No, I always say, right? Like, I barely keep my you-know-what together most days.
Yeah.
Never mind thinking that I know what is best for any other human being, right?
Yeah.
Like, that is a delusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, but I hear you. Well, Yana Khashper and Jon Westfall, thank you so much for sitting in with me
Thank you.
today. This was wonderful. And let me say, Yana, to you, as someone who's been a part of the recovery community here for 37-ish years, thank you. Thank you for everything you have done and your inspiration, and for staying on that hike that day when you would have rather gone home, because what you have created and are able to hand off to Jon and others is it is a gift to our community. And thank you. And I wish you all the best on whatever is next.
She's
Thank
not going
you.
anywhere.
Yeah, I
She's
know.
really
No,
not
I
going
know.
anywhere.
I know.
Thank you.
Symbolic.
Uh-huh.
Still in the background.
Well, listen, folks, thank you again for sitting in and making the time to be with us on this episode of The Helping Conversation. I hope you found today's conversation with Yana and Jon inspirational, maybe a little bit educational, for those who maybe are thinking about creating something like this in your community. We are at a phenomenal place in our world of understanding recovery, and recovery on a community level. What has transpired in terms of our knowledge and our skills just in the last 15 years has really moved this conversation along. And as Yana and Jon said, don't recreate the wheel. We have people out there who are doing wonderful things, who will bend over backwards to help you and to share their resources. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And if you are a person struggling with substance use disorder, please, please, please look around your community and find a place that you can go to and find people like Yana and Jon who can help you feel connected again to a healthy community and to yourself. Again, thank you for sitting in with us today. I hope you come back for our next episode as we continue to shine a light on the skill and talent of those individuals like Yana and Jon that invite another into that compassionate, complex, and intimate space called The Helping Conversation. Take care, everyone.
We thank you for sitting in on our discussion today on just one unique version of The Helping Conversation. We would love to hear your thoughts on today's podcast, so we sincerely invite you to follow, rate, and most importantly, review our episodes. For more information on Keith Greer and this podcast, log on to keithgreercoaching.com. Please join us for our next episode as we continue the exploration and celebration of the practice, art, and science of the helping conversation.